So you want to learn something? Well, you came to the right place. If this helps you learn something, make sure you give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. So what I'm going to do is show you how we go from start to finish on bringing a song from the world into Ableton so that we can play it. When we choose a song for our worship set, we want to record the original song into Ableton so we can put it in arrangement mode and maybe create our own arrangement or match it up with the master tracks arrangement or whatever we want to do. But I'm going to show you how to record that, how to set a lead in for your count in, and how to also warp that wave file, warp that clip so that you can either transpose it or speed it up or slow it down however you'd like to. And so let's jump in and get started. So you'll notice here I'm in Ableton Live and I've got one audio track, and the audio track is reading the microphone right now. What I need to do is be able to record the audio that's being produced by this computer. And rather than routing cables out and back into the computer, I'm going to use something called Soundflower, which is a driver that you can install on your Mac that allows you to create a virtual routing, virtual out and virtual in for your audio processing. And that will allow you to record what's being played on YouTube or iTunes or Spotify or whatever. Now, I understand that when you record something that's copywritten, that you're not supposed to be using it. We do this for reference only to help us build a track and to set up the timing and line up the cues and determine what the sections of the song are. But we don't ever use this data to reproduce the sound. We always pay for the multi-tracks, or we create our own arrangement with our own instrumentation and voicings. So the first thing I need to do is set up my Mac so that the sound is routed correctly. And I've installed the Soundflower driver. If you haven't, you need to download that and install it. The future versions of High Sierra may contain the ability to do this inherently, but I can't confirm that. So the first thing I'm going to do is open up System Preferences and click on the sound icon. And I want to make sure that my output is Soundflower. Okay, so basically when you do this, all the sound that you hear coming out of your computer is going to stop. You won't hear it anymore until you route it through and monitor it on one of the tracks in Ableton. Second step is to go into Live Preferences and set the input to that same channel or that same device. So Soundflower, 2-channel, 2 in, 2 out. Now that's going to change the way the sound is routed. So right now you can see the microphone is no longer picking up because that's not receiving, that's not actually routing the sound through anymore. I want to change this to 1, 2 in, and then I can pull up Spotify, for example, and I'm going to bring in Dawn to Dusk by All Sons and Daughters. So if I start playing this now, we should hear it. Yeah, we hear it coming through here. And it's routing out. It's routing out through Soundflower. And then Ableton is listening to it on Soundflower. And there's going to be latency and delay. So if it was a video, let me go ahead and turn this off. If there was a video playing, you would notice a delay in the sound as opposed to the video because it's got to route it out and come back into the system. But, don't worry about that. You're still getting the audio. It's just the timing is going to be off a little bit. And I'll show you how we fix that. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to record this entire song into Ableton. And I'll do that by queuing up the song. And in Ableton, I'm going to make sure that the track is armed, make sure that the input is correct, and that I'm monitoring it if I want to listen to it. And I don't need to worry about the tempo at this point. All I need to do is fire off the record button. And now I'm recording. And if you double click, you can see the WAV file developing. But there's nothing happening until I actually start the song. So let's go ahead and start that and record. Okay, so the song is done playing and it's done recording. I stopped the track here. And I can close Spotify now because I don't need it. What I'm going to do now is I need to grab the tempo. I need to know what song or what the tempo of the song is. That way I can set the original tempo. And when I warp it, I can warp to that tempo. So I'm just going to play the song, and we'll wait until it gets to the start here, and then we'll tap the tempo out. Okay, so we've basically determined that this is about 70 beats a minute. It's 4/4. And so the next step right now is to take this audio clip and move it over to the session view. And it's really easy to do. Simply click and hold the clip, press tab, and then drop the clip into the session or the arrangement view track. We're in audio track 1. We're not going to do any more recording, so you can disarm the track. But we do need to address this track and edit it. And it's kind of grayed out right now, and that's because we're still addressing session view. If there were still clips that were fired off in session view when we hit play, those are going to continue to play. So we need to disable that. So click this red button here, and that gives you full access to start editing. So you can notice here we've got 70 beats per minute. That's what we set the track to, or the song to. And we're not warped yet. So what we need to do is we need to come in here and click on warp. And we're going to click no because we want to retain this tempo. Okay, so we've got 70 beats. And you can see the segment BPM shows 120. You can ignore this. This really isn't important at this point. What we need to do at this point is find out where the downbeat is. We need to find the first beat of the first measure of the song. So I'm going to zoom in just a little bit here. And let's do that. And we will play it just to get a reference of where that is. And I can click here to jump forward. Okay, so we know that that first peak is the downbeat of the first measure. So we can come down to this tag right here. It's a little, you can see these little markers. These are your warp markers. When I hold the mouse over it, gives me a little ghost arrow here. When I double click that, it sets that marker. And so now this is basically the downbeat and can become the start of the song. Since we know this is basically 1-1-1, which is the first measure, first beat of the song, we can right-click this and click Set 1-1-1 here. Now that creates a little flag here called the start marker, and anytime we start this clip, it's going to start from right there. Okay? And now what's happened is it's taken it from 120, which is what it thought it was at, and it dropped it down to 170 and warped it at 170, and it's off right now. We're not going to worry about that just yet. What we need to do right now is we need to set a count in for a cue. So it will be something like 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's 2 measures long, so all you need to do is drag this start marker back 2 measures. And now you've got your count in set. You can see here that the start is at -2. Okay? At this point, what we need to do is we need to warp the song to the tempo that we tapped in. And that will allow us to get almost an identical match to the original recording. So right-click your warp marker and click warp from here, start at 70 BPM. That's going to dramatically change the entire wave file. It's going to squeeze it and squish it and all kinds of good stuff. But what you'll notice is when we hit play, it starts at the 2 because we moved the start marker back, and this will be where our count in is. And then it should be relatively close to 70 BPM. Now it's not going to be exact, and that's part of the problem with warping. But there's a solution for that. We can actually identify those markers and move the audio. So take a look here at these options. These are the warping options, depending upon the complexity of the song. If the song is very ambient and doesn't have any beats, then you're going to need to go for a higher complexity. If it's just beats, Ableton's going to do a good job of picking it up. At this point, I'm just going to choose Complex Pro. It's usually what I choose anyway. And we've already warped the entire song, but what we need to do now is go through that song, measure by measure, and make sure that we are right on target. And you can see right here, this marker is off. And if you scroll forward, it gets close. You can see the ones that are right next to the beats. Here's measure 2 downbeat. There's beat 2, beat 3. You can see they get close, but they're not exact. And here's something to know about warping. When you create 2 warping markers, and I can show you that we can make one right here. We can double click this, and then we can scoot it so it's stuck right on 2. Basically what just happened is I moved and squeezed everything between these 2 markers. So they are more in line with the total picture, the big picture. The problem is by squeezing this down only a little bit, that didn't move much and that didn't move much. So these are going to have to be lined up. Some songs require a little bit more maintenance than others. And you just give it a little wiggle and you can see it jump and move. But you're going to see, okay, it's nailed. They're right on target. They're right where they're supposed to be. Your precision or your need for precision is basically going to be based upon your project. So right now at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the entire song, and I'm going to make sure that all of these markers are warped in the right spot. And so as soon as I'm done with that, I will be back. Okay, now you can see that I've completely warped this song. You can see all the warp markers. And you'll also notice that there's some that are really tight here, close together, maybe every beat, and some that aren't so close together. And you don't have to be exact if you're just using this as a reference, and you don't need it to be just perfect. You can see here when I click in this segment, it gives me 70.37 beats per minute. This segment was at 69.17. So what happens is when you come down to one of these segments, if I were to double click and move this beat to exactly where it needs to be, it's not going to show the exact BPM of the song, but it's not going to be distinguishable when you listen to it. It could if you screwed it up too much. If I were to put a marker, let's say, if I were to take this marker and move it down to here, you can hear that slur. You don't want that. You want to get the downbeats as close to where they need to be on the measures as possible. So we don't need all of this. But throughout the song, sometimes you need more markers, sometimes you need less markers, and you can see these are off here, but they're close enough. That's good enough. It's good enough for our purposes and what we're actually trying to do. So now that I've got the entire clip, the entire audio file warped, I can rename this and I can give it the name of the song. All right, so Command R, Dusk to Dawn. And now because I've spent all this time and work doing this, I want to save this clip permanently so I don't have to ever do this again. This WAV file has been recorded into the samples folder underneath this project or underneath the user library, maybe even underneath this project. But I'm in a new set, so it's probably just under this user library. So this sample will be permanent, and it'll never be changed unless I actually use an audio editing program to change it. This clip, however, is kind of like a filter. It's filtering the way I want to play it. And the whole reason I'm warping this is so you can make the changes you need to make. For instance, if you want to, let me fire this up here. If you needed to play this in a different key, you could simply come down here to the sample settings, and you could change it by a half step or a full step or even more. And that allows you to have your singer sing in different keys. That's just one reason we do this. Another reason is if we wanted to slow it down or speed it up. So I could run this at 90, and it's still going to sound normal within reason. Okay? So that's the whole purpose of doing that. It allows us to drop this into an arrangement view and slow the song down enough to maybe transcribe it, learn the parts, and or play it slower or in a different pitch. So what I'll do now, because this clip is done, I'm going to drag it into my clips, and I have original recordings. So I'll simply drop this into original recordings and click copy. And so now any set that I create in Ableton, I can drag this clip into one of the audio tracks, and I'll be able to use it and manipulate it inside of that set. Okay, if this video helped you understand more about warping audio, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. And in the next video, what I think I'll do is go over how to create audio cues so that you can have a 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4 count in the first 2 bars of this song. So thanks for coming by. I hope this helped you out. Look forward to seeing you future. If you have any comments or questions, leave them below. And I'll also put a link to Soundflower in the description. All right. Talk to you later. Bye.